Hey folks, before we start today's video, I just want to tell you about a new course that we've launched on the Freedom Farmers platform. It's called Food Preservation 101 with Nicole Connect. She's a really great friend of mine, and we've put this course together to give you the nuts and bolts and the real 80-20 of food preservation. We look at multiple types of techniques: canning, freezing, dry storage. We look at different types of cold storage. We really cover all the bases. And the idea with this course is to give you the right information right out of the gate. Yeah, you can go on YouTube and look for this kind of information, but you'll spend hours going down a rabbit hole and watching a lot of people who make mistakes, because there's not a lot of filter with making YouTube videos these days. So anybody puts out anything. And so we've taken the best content on this subject that we know of. Nicole Connect has over 15 years of food preservation and homesteading. She's a mom, she's an incredible cook and chef. So if you want to check this out, there'll be a link somewhere in this video to take you to some more information about the course. Check it out. All right, so one thing that I never thought I would spend so much time and resources on my property is drainage. Now, we're on a mountain, and a lot of people would just assume that that's something that you more have to worry about when you're in a low-lying area. You hear about French drains, you hear about draining pond areas, or whatever types of earthworks to establish drainage. And in my experience, for the most part, maybe it's partially because I haven't seen a lot of properties like mine in the past, but in my experience, for the most part, you see this on low-lying properties that are in valleys that have problems with water sitting and causing potential problems. But up here on the mountain, what I've realized is that when I'm scaping this, and what I'm doing on this property is a lot of earthworks. I'm building terraces, I'm moving earth, I'm shaping earth, I'm packing earth. And one of the challenges that I've seen on this property is that when we get weather events, whether it's a big rainfall or the snow melt in the spring, which is the biggest one, and also the rains in the fall, water just comes down the hillside and it follows the path of least resistance, as water does. But what happens on my terraces is, if I don't have proper drainage, water will pool in on the terrace and sit there, and potentially over time could cause a landslide or erode the terrace down, because I'm building it up without nearly as much time and compaction as nature would have done it. Because when nature does it, it just settles over such a long time that the earth really finds its place. But when you're scaping it yourself, you don't have that time. So in this video, we're going to walk around. I'm going to show you a couple drainage features that we've added to this terrace here. Explain a little bit about what I do, how it works, and how it might help you. Let's go check it out. So we've got this garden terrace here, and this is the first terrace that I built for the garden. I've got two more up the hill. But what happens here on this land, or on this particular slope, is water comes down, and it actually comes directly to this in some ways. So what I have to do is move it around. And when you're doing drainage on land like this, it's not that much different principally than when you're doing drainage around a house. You've seen people do weeping tile or drain tile. Either you're using like a white PVC with the sewer piping with holes on the bottom, or you might be using a big O product with the sock on it, which I also call weeping tile or drain tile. And I'm doing a combination of those. I've done a combination of those on the property for sure. But what I use the most of on here is drain tile, and I'll show you what that looks like. So this is a piece of drain tile. It's a 4-inch big O with holes, a lot of holes in it. And then it's got this sock material on it. And the idea with this material is that filters out a lot of the fine particulates so that this doesn't get too clogged up over time. I also use a non-perforated Big O pipe, and when I explain this bit here, I'll show you how that was used. But it's the same stuff as this without holes and no sock. So I use those two things. And sometimes I use certain couplers or elbows to amalgamate pipes or connect pipes to other types. So what we've got here is this underneath this trench here. I dug this out with my mini excavator, and in order to get the water around this, the slope has to just either stay level or go down. And so the idea is that I start digging at my high side and I follow the path of least resistance down until I get to an exit where I can drop that water to a place that it's no longer going to be, it's no longer negatively going to affect what I'm doing here. So the first thing I do is I come up with my mini excavator and I would dig a trench. I'm just using the digging bucket, dig a trench as easily as I can. Doesn't take much time. The machine does the work. Once I have a trench that looks good, from there, I come in with my trusty pickaxe, which is a tool that I use a lot of when I'm doing earthworks on the property. So I use this pickaxe. I start at the top, the high side, and I walk down with the pick in the trench. And I'm just pulling it along, and that is getting out any big rocks, anything in the way. And I'm basically just walking it downhill, and I basically make a chute. Then I come back and then I use the flat side and I come down and I start picking it and I start to make a 4-inch channel in there, and I get all my material out till I get a nice clean channel. And now from there, I'm not quite done, but I can essentially from there either use my laser level to just check the points and make sure I'm continuing down, or I could just do a really quick and dirty and easy way, is just turn on some water and run it in there and make myself a little river and follow the water down. And as I follow the water down, if I see it start to build up in places, I'll grab the pick and I'll chip away so that I can just keep removing resistance so that that water just keeps going at a steady pace. Once I've done that, I can now essentially lay down my pipe. So I'm going to lay my pipe right in that channel. And the beauty of this tool is the width of this is 4 inches. So it works exactly to place my drain tile in. And once I got my drain tile in, now what I do is I come in and I take big rocks, and they're all around because my property is so rocky, and I just hand place as many as I can big rocks along the pipe. And the idea here is kind of twofold. One is to put some stuff beside it to create a resistance if there's something that's going to cause compaction, like a tire driving or whatever. And it's also allows me to create a funnel on the chute or on the pipe, so that when I come in with material like sand or drain rock, I can actually use less of it, but I can also concentrate it more on top of the pipe. Because the idea here is I want to create a nice even layer so that if there's compaction on top of the pipe, that it's equally distributed. So this essentially protects the pipe. And then once I've got my my rocks placed, I start to come in with material. And what I often do, and what I did actually specifically in this case, is all the material that I used to excavate out of here, I came in with the mini excavator and I pushed it up as close as I can to the drain tile laying down there. 2 reasons here. One is so that I can get a better access, so when my skid steer comes in here, I'm not driving on a pile of material. I can get my wheels right up there and my bucket right over and drop it. So there's one there. And the other is, by bringing this material as close as I can, I'm actually creating a tighter funnel on top of that drain tile, so that when I put in my material, it's concentrated exactly where I want it to be. It's not spread out and all over the place, and then I don't have to be hand bombing it to move it one way or the other. So then then after that, we come in with material. And actually, one thing I'll note is when I cross, if I'm going to cross a place where I'm going to drive over, like this one in particular, I hand place more rocks. So I just beef it up. I put the rocks down and I lay them as one layer, and I'll go back a few steps on an area like this, so that I'm bringing the rocks up higher and making the chute where I'm going to dump the other material on more concentrated so that this has way more protection, so that when I start pushing the other material over, there's no risk of crushing that pipe. And so from that point, I come in with the skid steer with my material. So I'll use either sand or drain rock. I'll use drain rock when I'm covering an area where there's drain tile, because I want that to continue to drain. Now, the drain tile has a sock on it. Some people might go and put a landscape fabric on top of this drain rock here. I've done that in the past, but because I have it on the drain tile itself, and because the water I'm moving through here is kind of coming from underground, I'm not worried about creating a perfect filter for water to come through here, because it's not really. And so anyways, you could put the fabric on there or not. But in this case, I'm not. From my rocks here, so I come in with the skid steer, I bring in my material, and from here, this is just, the dirt is going to get pushed right over on this. Now, in the case where you want to move, so in this case here specifically, so I'm collecting water from two places. I've got the drain tiles coming from one spot and another spot. They're coming to a T, and then they're coming down. And at the road here, where I've got this access point, I'm not worried about water coming down from here. It's all coming from uphill. I use a coupling joint, and I couple on a piece of non-perforated big O pipe and run that through. The idea being, I don't want to have any saturation on this road point. I want this to stay hard and compacted so that when I drive over it, I'm not sinking down and getting lower to that pipe. So that is basically the idea on how I do this. Now let me just kind of show you, we'll walk around and kind of show you some of the features of this specific drain that drains into two locations around this terrace. So let's start up here and come up here. So on this part here, I've got a long stretch that's at the base of this sloped area coming down. And I've dug it in to see where my water is weeping out of the hillside. And it's mostly weeping out here. There's a very little bit here, but I went a little bit further there just for the hell of it. And I'm gonna leave the pipe partially exposed there. So if in the future, I think that I'm getting too much shedding off this slope, I can just tie in, dig another trench, and do it over there. But I don't think I'm going to need to, and it's really rocky there too, so it'll be a lot of extra work. So I've cut in there, and then I've got my pipe that comes all along here, and all along this terrace, I've got more sloping down, and back over here, it all connects. So the water comes down this road area into here, and now this is about 3 feet beneath my garden beds, which is great because anything that comes down here, either through rain or snow melt, it's all just gonna very easily shed around the terrace, and I'll have no standing water here. So we're right here up at the top of this terrace where there's another drainage feature that comes from above where I'm standing. One of these is a pipe that is a gray water drainage from our cabin. I did a whole other video on that at fromthefield.tv if you want to go check that out, and I've talked about it in my daily vlogs there. But essentially what happens is water from the sinks, we have composting toilets, so it's all gray water. Water from the sinks and the showers comes out of our cabin. It goes to a grease trap that I have about 20 feet away from the house, downhill, filters through there, and then drains through here, and it all comes through here. So I'm getting slightly filtered water coming through here. Again, it's gray water, and it drains into this rock. And the reason I have all this drain rock here exposed is because underneath it is sheer bedrock. And I have that in a lot of places on this property, and so I can't really do much with it except roll over it. But, and then I've also got another pipe here, which is a drainage. It's an exit drainage for the terraces above where I am, that are the two terraces that are sort of zone 1 next to our cabin. And I've got the same thing on that, on the high side, drains all the way around, and it all exits out here. So this is another drainage here. This one I did in a slightly different way for a couple reasons, which I'll explain. So this water comes out here, and it could either go that way or this way. It mostly will go this way just because of the high side on the rock that it comes out. But on this one I'm standing on, I haven't fully closed this one up yet, but this has an extra feature on here that I mentioned down below, which is the landscape fabric. So in here, I've got a channel that I dug, did the exact same thing as down there, except when I laid down my drain tile here, I actually put a little base layer of sand. And the main reason I did that is because this was all jagged bedrock. And so the pipe was sitting directly on jagged bedrock and there was really nothing I could do about it. Whereas down there, it was on soil and I was able to shape it and smooth it so that there was nothing that was going to puncture the drain tile from underneath. So here I laid down a base of sand, which is really only 6 inches wide, smoothed that out with my rake, put the drain tile on top of that, and I made sure that that level kept dropping. So again, you can do the same test with water. Put some water in your drain tile and just watch how it goes out at the speed it does, and you'll more or less know if it's working or not. And then from there, I came in with drain rock. Drain rocks covers the pipe to smooth that out so that nothing pushes on the pipe. Then from there, I laid down landscape fabric and then sand on top of that, then we'll put earth. So you might ask, why did I do that extra bit of landscape fabric here, that extra step? The main reason is because this is essentially a dish above me. Not only am I getting water that I'm directing here from another drain, from another terrace, but I'm also getting my gray water from the cabin, and I'm also getting a massive amount of shed when it rains that it comes down all these slopes and hits this. And so I wanted to just create an extra stage of filtering for the drain rock because soil and other particulates will come and erode down. And so by having an extra filter, it makes it so that the pipe won't plug up. And I mean, it really would take a very, very long time for these pipes to plug up anyways, but it's just another layer to slow that down from happening. And essentially these go around and they just exit out, and then you can drop them where they're no longer an issue for you. Now, one thing I found by doing this as I continue to develop this property is, as I keep pushing things down below me and they exit out somewhere, if I want to do anything else down there, then I need to exit that water out somewhere else. And so the really neat thing about using this drain tile is that it's a very simple and a very effective way to re-divert water without doing culverts. Because to do a culvert, you need to have a couple things going for you. You have to have one, an area that you can landscape, that you can divert water to, and then you just get it all in one spot, you dig in your culvert, and then it crosses a road. That works in a lot of circumstances, and if you can do it that way, I would highly recommend it. The challenge I have here is, one, I don't want to do a massive ditch everywhere that's open, and another, I have a very rocky property and that I often can't even do that. I've done this same drain tile technique on many places on the property that cross the driveway and such, where I have to use drain tile. I can't use a culvert because I hit bedrock and I have to basically just move that water to a better place, and there's nothing else I can do. And so this works great for that. So I'll leave it there now for this one, folks. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comments below. If you don't subscribe to my channel, you can do that now. Share and like the videos. And if you want to see more in-depth content, head over to fromthefield.tv. That's where I daily vlog and post 90% of my videos. All right, guys, we'll see you in the next one.